Animations. Okay, we have a meeple here that we're gonna animate next. First of all, let's start looking at the animation tools that we have available. Animations are built with this timeline editor you have here on the bottom. And this button here allows you to start recording a new animation. Then you move your object to where you want that object to go, and then save animation with the next button here. So it created this animation segment here. Now you can scroll this timeline. You can see the seconds passed from the beginning of this step. You can select looping options. How do you want this to loop within the step? You can zoom in, zoom out the timeline. And you can also add trigger points, which allow you to do logical actions. These don't actually have anything to do with the animations, so we don't need to consider ourselves with those for now. So let's start with adding segments. I already showed one method, which is just you click record animation. Now it jumped to where the final bit of the animation is. You do a new segment and you click record, and now it created another segment. You can see that this orange here correlates to the first segment of the animation, and the yellow line to the second one. Here is the play button here on top. If I click that, it will play that animation for me to see that what's actually happening in this step, so we can see that it travels those lines. And let's do a third segment here. So here we have created a few animations. Now in board games, tabletop games, normally the only thing you do is just moving objects from point A to point B, which is exactly what you will do with the dice tools. So that's one way to add these segments. The other way is to right click, so select a segment and then right click, and now you can add a new segment either before or after. So I'll add one after. So this is now our new segment, but we haven't added any animation to it. So you can see that the first animation segments will happen normally, but then it will just stay put for this time because we haven't set any animation for it. So it will wait here and then it will continue. With the animations, the end point of this animation segment is also the start point of the next animation segment. So, which is why nothing happens here, but it does have a clear start and an end, which has happened to be the same exact point. Now you can also animate things in a group. So I'm gonna add two objects here, start a new animation, do the animation, finish it, and now both of these meeples got the same animation added to them. Now let me select all these three meeples. I add a new selection and I move them and save those. So now we can see that the new segment was added to the end of each of these three objects. So they aren't actually timed together. They don't move as a group because now the new animation for this green one was added at the end of its existing animations. So the only way to make them move together is either to now readjust these animations that I just created. For example, the green one is starting that animation at the 4-second mark. So I could just set these second animations to start at the 4-second mark, and now they would all start their final animation at the same time. There we go. So that it's not really a group animation in the sense that they would move together as a group, but it's a group animating tool in the sense that you can animate multiple objects at the same time and make them move exactly the same amount. And here, note that this empty space is not an animation segment, it's just empty space. These colorful blocks are animation segments. So nothing will happen during these areas here. You can click here on the timeline and move the playhead around to see what's happening in the timeline. This is useful, for example, just to see that objects aren't flying through each other or anything like that. So let's talk a little bit about editing segments. I'm gonna get rid of these here. So first of all, Now each of my, by default, all the animation blocks are 1 second long. When I click a segment, I can move it around. So I'm holding down my mouse button and you can move the segment around. If you just click it to select it, then you get these adjustment bars at the ends, which allow you to make the animation shorter or longer. The minimum is 0.1 seconds. And also when you move segments around, you can see that they snap to 0.1 seconds. This just makes timing the segments a lot easier. So that is how you manipulate the times and uh, uh, the duration of the animation and when those segments will actually happen, which obviously allows you to also sync things together. Now, each animation segment, as I said earlier, share the end and start point with each other. So this means that if I now select this block here, for example, and I edit the start position for this, this also edits the end point of the previous animation segment. So let's look. This yellow animation ends here. The orange one doesn't actually do anything. And then the yellow one continues here. So if I go and edit, let's say I edit the change start. So if I edit this position here and I save my edit here, now we can see that the lines changed. This will actually fly to this new position here, and now this will move sideways to the endpoint what it was, and then the animation will continue. So you can edit the start and end points by selecting a segment, then right-clicking for the menu, doing your adjustment, and then saving the animation with that button there. And deleting segments is done with the same menu. Select the segment, right-click, delete, and you will get a confirmation menu. Now, what's important to notice here is that I'm about to delete this orange segment here, which means that these points are now combined because the orange segment will disappear. And let's see what happens. So it lost the 1 point, and now what was previously the end point, or is still the end point of this segment here, is now also the start point of this segment here. So pay attention when deleting blocks. And those are the animation tools for objects. The final note is the looping option here. If you have no loop selected for the object, it means that once it's done its animation, it will just stay there as long as the content is shown for the player. If you select loop, this object will loop as soon as it gets to the end of its animation. So I'm actually going to do just a quick what I would call a jump animation for this blue guy. So I created 2 segments that don't yet do anything, but now I'm going to change the ending of the first segment to just make that meeple go up and save. So now the first segment brings it up and the second segment brings it down to the exact position where it was in the beginning. So it's going to be a very smooth loop. And I'm just going to make this very short. So that meeple will now loop, jump there, while the other one moves those its segments. Loop after means that this animation waits until the end of all animations. When all animations have finished when all objects have finished their animations, then they will start together over. So let's put these both to loop, and I'm just gonna delete this to make it shorter. So both of these will loop at the same time, and when the green, so the longer animation has finished, and now they would both loop. They don't do in the editor, but they would loop in the content. So they would do their animation again. And loop at the end also waits for the voiceover to finish before they loop. And usually if you have very short animations, it's a good idea to loop them just to show players what's supposed to be the information in content step. so that it's just not stationary, because that's kind of boring to look at. Also, if you have about the voiceover and the subtitle, the reading it would take the same amount as showing the animation, then I wouldn't loop them, because there wouldn't be time to finish that loop. If it's a step where players need to do something so the tutorial does not go forwards automatically, then I would absolutely loop things, just to keep showing player over and over again what they are supposed to do right now before they continue with the tutorial. And that's how you animate things with Dized.